most famous sufferer of motor neuron disease was, of course, I've forgotten the name, the cripple with the crippled scientist, Stephen Hawking. His name momentarily slipped my mind. So let us consider the symptoms and pathology of motor neuron disease. Motor neuron disease, MNDs, are a group of rare neurodegenerative, just focus on that word. They are a group of neurodegenerative disorders that selectively affect motor neurons, the cells which control voluntary muscles of the body. They include amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, progressive bulbar palsy, pseudobulbar palsy, progressive muscular atrophy, primary lateral sclerosis, spinal muscular atrophy, and monomelic amyotrophy. I think that's how it's correctly pronounced. As well as some other variants resembling ALS, and I will remind you that ALS stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Motor neuron diseases affect both children and adults. While each motor neuron disease affects patients differently, they all cause movement-related symptoms, mainly muscle weakness. Most of these diseases seem to occur randomly without known causes, but some forms are inherited. Studies into these inherited forms have led to discoveries to various genes that are thought to be important in understanding how the disease occurs. Symptoms of motor neuron disease can be first seen at birth or can come on slowly later in life. Most of these diseases worsen over time, while some, such as ALS, and let me remind you that ALS stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, shortens one's life expectancy, others do not. Currently, there are no approved treatments for the majority of motor neuron disease disorders, and care is mostly symptomatic. So no cure. The analogy holds true for societies, nations, and empires suffering from this disease. The only way to get rid of it is to acknowledge that your moral system has failed and get a new and better one. It's very simple. But the people such as V who has posted in the chat claiming that the West is the best, he's probably George, who has a similar message. He thinks that all the West has to do is sit on its laurels and then wait for his grandchildren to clean up the mess of the overflowing toilet that is the West. I see Joe has popped up to pretend that I am in some way mocking the disabled. No, I'm not. I'm mocking the Westerners who suffer from the moral motor neuron disease that I talk about. This means that they are unable to agree with me in public about what they know to be the truth, which is that Christianity and liberalism are both kaput, and this whole mess is rotting into intersectionality, which will be disaster for their society and civilization, but they will not be seen to be publicly agreeing with me on this because they are men of cowardice and corruption. And corruption doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you take bribes. It just means that you deliberately ignore and deny the truth. And the truth is that your moral and political system is broken down and it is rotting away before your eyes. And the only way to solve this problem is to acknowledge this fact. But you can't. So somebody in denial like Vaihu is only going to say, it'll be fixed. We'll be okay, but I'll leave my grandchildren to fix it when he's not a married father even, is he? And if he does marry, will he have any control over any offspring of his? Probably not under the rules of no-fault divorce. But anyway, he's not going to concede anything, and he's one of the stock figures that frequent the channel of Ralph Masilamani. And his channel is currently called House of Comments, previously called Right Reaction. Why does he keep changing the names of his channel? Presumably to avoid being discovered. Why is he afraid of being discovered? It must be because he knows that fundamentally he's not supposed to be doing this. Probably his wife objects to his flirting with the alt-right. I don't have a wife, and this puts me in a uniquely strong position to say what I believe to be the truth, because even men, senior men in the political establishment would be too afraid to discuss what I daily discuss. So I know that the West is made up of men in the upper echelons who are moral cowards and moral and intellectual cowards, and those at the bottom who are anti-establishment agitators. They're also moral and intellectual cowards, because I know deep down they agree with me. I've given them enough time to come up with a better solution than secular Quranism, and they haven't been able to come up with anything approaching that. Their puny little ideas are completely dwarfed by secular Quranism. I've given them at least a decade to come up with something better, and they can't, and they won't acknowledge defeat because they're all afraid. They're afraid not just of me and my idea, but afraid of each other, of being ostracized. So let me think of those people like Thomas Barden Rees. He's been helpful in his limited way by having me on his channel. I'm grateful to him for that. But he's not a man prepared to discuss anything of substance, he's only going to lower himself in status by pretending to be a conspiracy theorist and therefore not to be taken seriously and therefore allowed to keep his channel. And I know he's in touch with the others who are perhaps a little more serious, but they can't discuss secular Quranism because I think they have more or less agreed with each other that they're not going to platform me. However easily I win the arguments, they're not going to admit that I have won the arguments, they're not going to acknowledge my existence, they're not going to discuss secular Quranism because they have no answer, they have nothing better. But then that is because they are not married fathers without a stake in the future. They are not making any biological investment in the next generation, and they are atheists. And for atheists, as long as they live all right until they're dead, they're okay with that. They're happy in the meantime to consume all the available resources and tell lies and ignore truth and collect their super chats because they don't really care. Because they don't have descendants. They are married nihilists too, who, have legitimate children, claim to love them, but they can't acknowledge the truth of what I say. I think a lot of them do complain about the failure of Christianity, since most of them are not Christian. But they hate Jews. And this means they have to reject all the Abrahamic faiths. And this means they have to create their own pathetic pagan religion that no one will follow, not even people of similar low status. So this means that what they think of as their political activism is no more than whinging and refusal to discuss solutions and cures. They won't even discuss the disease because, as far as they're concerned, Jews did it. The comments in the chat are all self-identifying of these pathetic losers who will never acknowledge the truth of secular Quranism because they don't really care. They're not going to be married fathers. They don't have a stake in the future, and therefore their very limited objective is to go to their grave before the adoption of secular Quranism. And these are the people that these bigger channels on YouTube fear. These pathetic losers with no stake in society, but who fund their super chats and super stickers. People like Ed Dutton and the others. So while they occasionally echo my idea, they won't go the whole hog. They won't platform me because they don't want to be known as a person who unleashed secular Quranism onto nationalism. That's why they block me and hide me and flee from me. Jews do that too. Particularly the ones who don't want to acknowledge that Judaism is too hard for them to follow and that Israel should be a theocracy. And the only theocracy they are capable of adhering to would not be a Torah theocracy, but the Islam light, that is, secular Quranism. They don't want to admit that. They keep hoping against hope. That I am wrong, and hope that I will eventually fade away. But there may be just a chance that there are men in the West who are wanting to not go down without a fight. Outside the pathetic live chat. Sam, yes, you can come on. Aaron Unhood was asking about you. He wondered what you thought of Israel Independence Day. So to finish my point about the motor neuron disease, it's simple. It's really simple. All you have to do is accept that your moral system is broken and get a new and better one. And Judaism actually has this view that the cure exists before the disease. Sam and I are not agreed on the solution because he wants the Messiah to come and diaspora Jews to return to Israel, and he doesn't. Well, I think he wants a magical solution, and I'm saying, well, even if I did believe in God, absolutely, I'm not going to be, pushed into doing what Chabad was doing by saying, just because we want the Messiah to come, we're going to behave as as if he's about to arrive, and behave as if our rabbi is going to be the Messiah, and we're going to fake it until we make it. Of course, there's an argument to do this because, well, a lot of human activity is about faking it until you make it. But I'm saying, even if you did absolutely believe in God, I think God only helps those who help themselves, and they're not going to help people who deny the truth and who, are fixed on their particular solutions just because they can't face the practical solution. So that's my thesis, and I'm just going to post a link now. I mean, the motor neuron disease is a problem of people just wanting stuff to happen but not being able to even do it. They can't even think the thoughts that would produce the words that would produce the actions required to solve the problem. Western civilization won't end because civilization just means having the ability to sustain city life. So it doesn't matter what religion you have, as long as you are able to have the human organization required to sustain city life, you are a civilization. You just have to dump Christianity and liberalism and accept what is the obvious solution, which through indulging in the sins you refuse to accept. Hello, Sam.
Oh, hello.
How's your day been?
Excellent. I'm having a good time today.
Good, good.
And
What have
to
you been?
Joey Joe, I does read the Shakespeare. I reads the Shakespeare all the times. And the Shakespeare, it makes a lot more sense to me now that I've read Shakespeare's Messiah, Secret Messiah by Joey Atwell. There's another Joey there. So Joey the cunt in the comments section is not as smart as Joey the Atwell, who wrote the book Caesar's Messiah and Shakespeare's Secret Messiah. There's a big distance between the Joey in the comments section and the Joey that wrote those books. Because Joey likes to make fun and mock and make snarky, sneering comments because he's a doofus. He doesn't know shit. He knows nothing. All right,
And he's scared.
and he's scared of the truth. He's scared of the truth.
And I suppose, understandably, he's a little resentful, like, you can't take up Shakespeare from us, Joe.
We've taken everything from you, just the same as you've tried to take everything from us. We are only reclaiming what is ours. Your stupid invented God was it was a product of Roman politics and Roman pragmatism and Roman syncretism. It was their practice. It's all out in the open. 2,000 years of that garbage, and you're not. You don't have any permission to borrow from our religion and from our book or to build on it in order to create your false god and have us submit to it. And by your trying to manipulate us into submitting to your false god that was built on the backs of our faith, our religion, our history, our inheritance, and our heritage. No, hell no, we won't let you get away with that. And the authors of Shakespeare made sure to let you know that you're not getting away with it. But you're too stupid to figure those things out. You think Shakespeare was an Englishman. He was a nom de plume. The authors of Shakespeare made sure to let you know. Yeah, it was a nom de plume, just like Flavius Josephus was a nom de plume, just like even fucking Aristotle was a nom de plume. You realize these things, and it's mind-boggling, you know, how the building blocks of Western civilization are based on pure deceptions and half-truths and deliberate lies. You know, and gaming people psychologically, trying to control them through all these different means of cult civilization building and building values and culture by way of deception, not by being honest and truthful.
So, can you prove that Aristotle was what do you say, a Roman invention?
Yeah, that's what the professor from La Trobe University, Rodney Blackhurst, the PhD, said, was that the origins and the foundations of Aristotle's history is very shaky. And
he again, Rodney what?
Dr. Rodney Blackhurst. I'll find you the link and I'll send it to you. It's the same channel, the History Valley. And he goes in depth into describing the fact that the information that we rely on to identify Aristotle is very fishy. It's very suspicious. It's not reliable. All right, and it's Roman, and it's a precedent to what the Romans did with the Hebrew Bible. Like I spoke to you about this before. Maybe you forgot. He was afraid of being called a quack or a crackpot or a crank, whatever you want to call it. But he posed the case, the evidence, and it's very compelling. I'll find you the link and I'll send it to you. Just give me a second. I didn't want to interrupt and be accused of running on and like Mr. Joey's accusing me of just rambling or whatever, just talking for the sake of talking. I'm not talking for the sake of talking. All these things are coming out into the light, and you people, you're going to have to swallow all of it. It's a big, embarrassing, humbling for all of you. It's your pride. It's your legacy. It's all being challenged. You know. So go ahead, Claire. I just got to answer this phone call.
Okay. So, as I was saying, motor neuron disease, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, all that sort of thing. You want this thing, but you can't. You want to walk out the room, but you can't even get your ass into gear to stand up and walk out. That is the moral motor neuron disease that I was talking about. And that's because Christianity is kaput and conservatism is kaput because Christianity is kaput and you never believed in it for centuries and you could only be forced to believe in it. And it only worked when Western governments supported marriage, and Western governments have not been supporting marriage for half a century, and that's why it's happening. I mean, that's my diagnosis, and I guess a lot of the alt-right YouTubers can't accept it from me because, well, they don't acknowledge my status. I am female and a racial foreigner, and they won't take it from me. But the least I thought they would do is, well, steal my ideas and discuss the issues I raise, but not a bit of it. They're doubling down on their Jew blaming.
Claire, I just attached the link in the private chat in the StreamYards to that a episode with Dr. Blackhurst, where he makes this case, just to prove the point that the Romans were adept at doing this, taking other cultures' literature and adapting it to their values and their imperial, designs.
Okay.
You could put it up on screen for people, and you could show them the the page, or the
Yes.
what do you call that? Not the page. What do you call that? When you have the picture for the video.
Thumbnail.
Thank you. You're sharper than me. I'm thumbnail. So yeah, that's exactly the word I was looking for.
Right. So the why were you talking about the thumbnail? Sorry.
Just so that people will recognize which video we're talking about. Just show them the link it. Show them what the video looks like, where they can find the information, which channel it is, History Valley, and share the link with them. Okay.
I'm just posting it in the chat.
Excellent.
Also, I will show it briefly.
Excellent. And I have no problem with Israel's Independence Day. I'm not one of these really uptight religious types that takes issue with Israel's existence or its Independence Day. Not at all.
Right. There's just so many, weird ideas because, I know this Israeli Jew who also was I'm sure he still is an American, and he's basically saying the same things as you. Like, I hope the anti-Semitism will scare my fellow Jews in a diaspora to coming back but anyway.
You're talking to another Israeli that's on the same page as me?
Well, that's what I thought, but then he said, "Oh, but I'm not on the same page."
And regarding what exactly?
About anti-Semitism sending diaspora Jews back to Israel.
Oh, okay. So he's having also his denial, process overwhelming him. He's living in denial because it's not as out in the open and overt as it can become soon. That's the thumbnail. People should watch that. It's very good. As far as learning that the Roman power structure and the bureaucracy in Rome When it conquered other cultures and other civilizations, it made very damn sure to adapt their literature to Rome's outlook on civilization and civilization building. So it makes a perfect argument and perfect case, because Aristotle was a 70 or more years before the destruction of the Second Temple and the beginnings of the Gospels, and writing even Paul's epistles and letters even were written after the Gospels, according to Joseph Atwell and Jacob Berman. You watched yesterday's episode, and he also.
I did, but it was just a bit too complicated for me. So maybe
no, it's not complicated. It's not. You have to understand where Joe Atwell's coming from, and you have to have some background in his his studies and research. And if you watch that video of Rodney Blackhurst, it's also featured in the Caesar's Messiah documentary. These are the experts. These are the people that study this. On a constant basis, they teach Bible studies. That professor is a Bible studies a researcher and obviously teacher. And so he's on it all the time. These people are in this information all the time, as well as Eisenman. The average person finds it difficult to understand or absorb, but if enough repeats, enough attempts at thinking abstractly and realizing that the literature of these of the Greeks and the literature of the Jews is what built their civilizations. So the Romans according to their interests, very rightfully targeted the literature of the Greeks and targeted the literature of the Jews in order to co-opt them and usurp them, and also not only, but to subsume them, to sort of like include them into their civilization. That's what the Romans did. They also committed genocide when the resistance was too stiff, but they also had multi avenues, different approaches to conquering people, and it's also about conquering their civilization and their literature and their beliefs. So they did this with the philosophy of the Greeks, and they also did this with the theological scriptures, the religious scriptures of the Jews. It's set by realizing that a precedent was set prior to the writing of the Gospels and all the rest of that nonsense that the Romans, it was a Roman project. It's just stronger evidence. It's supporting the thesis and the case that it was all a matter of politics, and it had nothing to do with an organic schism of a religion that schismed off from another religion, as people like to believe. That's their accepted point of view on history. It's not that. It's not the case. When these things become obvious to people, their beliefs get shattered. Their false god gets blown to bits, and then they're in a bind. They have to find a solution to their current situation. And if it's civilization crumbling and Western civilization decaying, it's because they haven't chosen a proper answer to 2,000 years of lies. I just got to get my boy is beating me up again with the
it had that familiar ring.
The wiffle bat here. I'm letting him beat me up. I just got to discipline him. Just give me a second.
Okay. I'm posting the link to Aaron in case he wants to join, because he has a few questions he wants to ask Sam. I think my computer's suffering from motor neuron disease. So painfully slow. Yeah, it'd be nice to have Aaron back on.
Oh, you want to have Joe Atwell back on?
Well, I'd like to, but he may not wish to. I don't know. I mean, I think he's got a new book out, and maybe he wants to.
Oh yeah, yeah. He mentioned it yesterday. the identity of all the oligarchical families. He might have done. He wanted people to do like a family tree and check the lineage of all of these families going back as far as possible, because obviously he makes the connections.
Well, the lineage of the American aristocracy, is that what
No,
you mean?
all of the aristocracy of Europe and of what became in America as well, the nouveau riche and their aristocracy, whatever
And,
that
and
they.
what would that prove?
No, that there's a direct link to 2,000 years worth of molesting the minds of people via false religion and an invented deity.
Well, I think you don't need to do all that to prove it. You just say, look, the New Testament is not the word of God. At least the Jews think that their Torah is the word of God, and at least the Muslims think that. The Christians don't even think that, because Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Paul, they're not God. I mean, even Christians don't claim that they're God, right?
Furthermore, it's a hijacking. It's sort of like taking captive not only Jewish slaves, but taking captive their literature and their beliefs and modifying it and changing it to suit the interests of the empire. This was a life and death struggle. These were genocidal wars. It wasn't something minor. So the Romans had a very a strong motivation for taking the Hebrew scriptures and fiddling with it, perverting it, modifying it, changing its meaning in order to create the jizbag, the Jebus, the Jesus. I don't care if it's the Islamic Jesus or the Christian Jesus. It's all I
mean, they can't even explain what the hell he was trying to do. I mean, there's just no coherent account. Like, why did he get into trouble? Why were the Pharisees after him?
It was all sewn together.
It's just a.
No, it was like these stories were all
eternal victim, and we must.
Yeah, but it was they had their sinister a sort of objectives they had to meet, because it was part of answering the Messianic Jews' challenge to the empire and fighting the empire. So they had to vilify the rebels and make it either a somewhat obscure, like what Joe Atwell said, and veiled, but also very overt and very direct. So the whole story of the Jizbag, the Jebus, the Jesus, is a Frankenstein invention that was sewn together like a patchwork blanket, and so people didn't understand this until way past the time of its original publication, or when it was released by way of like political pamphlets in the first century. I guess the first century people understood it as Roman propaganda very clearly. The Jews understood it as Roman propaganda. They didn't take the bait. They didn't bite. They didn't believe it was written by Jews or rebel Jews or nationalist Jews. Obviously, it was written by people who had very sinister intentions. All right. So that was understood in the first century, and over time it became less understood. And that kind of motif that they used, that kind of writing that they used, turned into a religion. They turned it into the imperial religion in the early 4th century. So under Constantine, it was I'd say it's not like just there's an expression like what's the word for it when it's fate. It's not it wasn't an accident. It wasn't just a matter of fate. The hand of God was guiding all of this. Okay, they had destroyed the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and by doing that, they created a lot of spiritual, sort of a disruption, sort of like an event that cut off a link, sort of like a pipe, a connection to the heavens, to God. And what ended up happening is that they, by their action, by their deeds, and by doing what they did, destroying the temple and scattering the Jews and destroying the Jews' sovereignty over the state of Israel, it created this spiritual vacuum and this displacement. Okay, so over time, by their deeds, by their having done what they did, they took a leading role as the God makers or the decision makers as far as religion is concerned, and for the whole of the empire. Sort of like I wouldn't say it was a passing of the baton. They took what they took what wasn't theirs. They confiscated what was not theirs, just like they confiscated the work of Plato in order to create Aristotle. And it's very intriguing. You should really watch that video of Rodney Blackhurst. He sets a precedent that basically this was a norm and a practice in early Roman civilization building amongst the people they conquered and the cultures and civilizations they conquered. They not only, like you said, they not only subsumed their gods, like in Virgil's telling of the Iliad. All right, yes. the Aeneid, the Roman version of the Iliad of Herodotus, right? Herodotus wrote the Iliad. Who wrote the Iliad? Homer. Sorry, I'm not that sharp with my Greek authors and writers. Herodotus was a historian, but Homer wrote the Odyssey, the Odyssey and the Iliad. Okay, so you have Virgil's Aeneid as a sort of like a retelling of the Iliad, right? So what more do you need there? And if you figure out that Aristotle is a Romanized, concocted a successor to Plato, the student of Plato, and his identity and history is shady, then it's not such a long, leap to make when realizing that when they confiscated the Hebrew scriptures and the Hebrew prophets, they did what they did with it in order to create the jizbag, the Gospels, the fag, Paul, and all the rest of that crap that they wrote, and they worship that garbage. They venerate that garbage for 2,000 years. We've had to deal with that garbage. And now it's all blowing up in their faces. And Shakespeare is also, is also part of the evidence that can be submitted in order to make the case that this information was known, and it was too dangerous to be.
What is the evidence about Shakespeare having been written by Jews? What is?
Did you watch the whole episode yesterday of Joe's interview?
I kind of listened to it, but it was mostly about something else, wasn't it? It was meant to be.
It was about the dating of Paul's letters, the epistles.
Yeah, it began with that, and they went on about that for ages.
No, it was to make the case that Paul did not come before the Gospels. He actually came after the Gospels in the reign of Domitian. And they were very crafty. They were very crafty. I mean, this is statecraft. This is about God building. This is about vanity. This is about you have to. We don't live in these kinds of times anymore. But you have to use your imagination. You have to be an abstract thinker. Maybe through movies you understand how the royals behaved when they had a free hand, when they had free reign, when they had complete autocracy over their people, over their subjects. It's hard for us to imagine this nowadays. The arrogance, the vanity, the tyranny, and the heavy-handedness, and take it back to those Caesars, man. It's not easy for us to understand their mind, just like it's not easy for us to understand the minds of the people, behind the scenes trying to, enact, and they're enacting, they're putting into operation a lot of destructive policies that end up deliberately damaging all of humanity, everyone. And we know who we're talking about now. I don't have to go into, I don't want to get you into trouble. But that's where Joe makes the connections. Joe Atwell makes the connections, And if it's about having to alienate the Christians from the Jews, I could give two shits. I'm not worried about that. Honestly, the Christians
for their own good. For their own good.
The Christians think that the reliance that the Jews have on Western countries, on America and Europe, is going to last forever, because they don't believe, they don't have, they think they're going to, somebody in your comment sections said, we're top dog in 2022 and we're going to be top dogs in 3033. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I wish you well now with, what's happening to you in Europe and America. And in America, you refuse to take a stand, even if it doesn't have to be on religious grounds. It just has to be on basic human instincts and human sort of like built-in ethics. That we're not clean slates when we're born. We're not empty vessels when we're born. We are born with a certain sort of imprint of our past, of our relatives. It's all in our genes, it comes packaged into us at birth. It's not something that's just about a matter of conditioning. There's something spiritual.
You believe in reincarnation, don't you?
Absolutely, I do. And so these people don't understand these things. They are in many respects low lives. They're boorish. They're dumb, and I'll insult them. And they think that because of their money and their resources, that they can push people around, push countries around. It's over. It's over. It's not that Israel has to make all of these recalculations and rearrange their alliances with countries that are not aligned with the West. For me, you know where I stand with this. Israel is going to be self-reliant completely when we have what's coming. Nobody will mess with us. Nobody will bother us. And we won't be needing anybody. We won't be needing anything from anybody or any country. And we'll soon find out. You'll soon see. Well, this Jew is boasting. He's making these arrogant claims and boasts. And who does he think he is? And look, they've always relied on our help and military assistance and moral support. And it's because the jizz bag was a Jew. The Jesus was one of theirs. So we worship a Jew, but they don't realize why. They don't realize what the circumstances that led up to that in the first century. They don't realize what the Romans did. They don't realize what the Jewish aristocrats did, that they were Hellenized. They were in league with the Roman power, structure, the authority there. They don't realize the roots of how Jesus was invented. And if they did, they'd give up on this Jesus. And then they'd also give up on the Jews. It's like, why? There's nothing there. There's no real sort of like a relation. If Jesus was not real, if the Gospels is all crap, it's all bullshit, why should we bother with the Jews and with Israel, with the Israelis? It's like, leave us alone. You leave us alone. We'll leave you alone. And let's go our separate ways, It's not about it, but who doesn't want to do this? There are Jew ass kissers in New York and in America and in LA and in wherever, that their whole good thing, their whole, comfortable existence is reliant on Gentiles being sort of like, considerate to them on the basis of not just the history and Holocaust guilt, but because of the Jeezer, because of Jebus, the precious Jesus. All right, now if the Jews work deliberately to cut off sever those ties, and say, well, just you go your way, we'll go our way. This is what you want. This is what we want. For the most part, a lot of Jews don't want this because they're too overly reliant. They're too overly dependent. That character that had that Italian name, Jacob Fatrucci. I think he was a liar. I think he might have been half Jewish. He might have been mixed with Italians. And so that's why he sounded like a messianic Jew for Jesus type, He doesn't want to deal with the full ramifications of all these things that are being revealed, the full truth. So he wants to, continue to suck up to the Christians, continue to maintain this illusion, this lie.
We also live in America, basically. So the ones, the Jews who say, well, we're more American than Jewish, and
Right. Well, the German Jews of Germany or the whoever, they said these same things up to the last minute before they were rounded up and then mass murdered. They thought themselves more German than Jewish. They were proud of their German identity. They were a part of the elite, the upper echelon of a German society. and they ended up biting the bullet, literally, for that kind of miscalculation, that kind of betray. It wasn't a, it was a betrayal of their Jewish identity, and that's what did them in. All right. So, and they were in Germany, they were accused of betraying their German identity. So they were between a rock and a hard place. They were stuck there in between not being able to win in a catch-22. And
Yeah, and the historical lesson for Jews is that, if you're going to get blamed, if you're going to be damned, whatever you do, you might as well do the right thing.
yeah, own up to the full truth. Don't be embarrassed by it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't try to make these ridiculous. What did he call you? A saboteur, a very cunning saboteur. You're
Yes,
a
I mean, it's
very
ridiculous.
effective saboteur.
Yeah,
You know what?
he says I dismantle, ships of state or something like that. He said that.
Retarded. No, but the thing is that who the real saboteurs are people like him that try to push the jizz bag, the Jeezer on Jews. Jews for Jesus are maniacal saboteurs of the Jewish identity of the Jewish people, and they should be answered with vehement resistance. And if it means that having to blow up their false god in their face, then so be it. If Caesar's Messiah and Joe's work and other people's work is the means, is the tool, is the vehicle to blow the Jesus up right up their asses, then fine by me. Because what they are doing is a very deliberate sabotage of Judaism and of the Jewish people. And they think they're doing the right thing. Why? Because they want to maintain this link, this, what's this relationship, this supposedly mutually beneficial relationship, this alliance.
Symbiotic.
When we symbiotic, when we're done with it, it's end times, and this is a clear sign of the end times when this relationship is
Even
ended.
if it isn't the end times, it should be dissociated.
No. It's there were many sort of conditions for when the Jews were dispersed into the exile. That all sorts of terms and conditions that the Jews had to meet and the Gentiles had to meet, whether they understood it or not. There was an allotted amount of time for these symbiosis and also conflicts and also tensions and wars to last as long as they did, until this time when everything becomes wide open and revealed. When we've reached the information age, and these lies of 2,000 years, these instruments of mind control, these instruments of oligarchy get exposed and get discarded, and that's what's happening. They are being discarded, and that's why we have this intersectionalism right now. They've already distanced themselves from their faith and their religion to the point where they've become really confused. And so they're vulnerable, and I feel for all of them, the Jews and the Gentiles that are vulnerable to this oligarchical manipulation of their everything that is included in their day-to-day living is being manipulated, controlled, and engineered. And
because they won't accept that their moral and political system is broken. They won't. They're still talking about democracy and still fighting elections. That
Right.
shows they don't get it.
Right. Okay, so they like to shame people that come from other countries and other cultures that are not considered
Like China and Russia,
originally
and
Western. Yeah, originally Western. But
that are not operating liberal democracy. But
yeah.
like Russia tried. I mean, technically, Russia is a liberal democracy. It has elections. It even has a liberal party, but it's still not good enough for America, the bully.
Right. Because this is how they manage to subvert people's will and people's sort of basic instincts and their basic values by way of what this liberal democracy. Do you see
because
how
their conceptual idol is democracy. and therefore I can't compromise on that. I have to say I don't believe in representative democracy. I believe Christianity has failed, and I cannot compromise on that because the moment I do, they'll think, oh, it's okay or whatever.
Well, they're trying to
So there
find.
must be people who will reject the whole thing.
Well, what you're proposing as a substitution in response
They,
to
they will reject it because it'll be hateful to them. But I'm saying that's the only option. It's too bad if you don't like it, but that's the only solution. And if you
well,
disagree, you think come up with something better. And they're basically saying we would rather die. And that is the situation at the moment.
yeah, well, I understand that. I understand that's your argument. It's compelling, but we don't see eye to eye on the what's going to be the solution. Because you don't really you're not on my frequency as far as my faith and my belief in the arrival and revelation of the Jewish Messiah and the time of redemption, and you are still suggesting what you're suggesting, and despite the fact that they will outright reject it, and
I mean,
they'll,
as
they'll
they will reject, your belief that the Messiah is
they'll,
about to
yeah,
die.
they'll reject my beliefs as well. But I'm not bothered. I have full confidence in what I'm saying
Yeah,
and what I'm
I
stating.
understand.
So
So when did you start believing? I mean, you said you weren't religious. So when did you think, oh, I do believe in God after all? And but
no,
perhaps not.
no. I would say I was like a traditionalist, a believer. That doesn't mean I'm not religious. I'm not orthodox, modern, sort of like ultra orthodox or what's stereotypically considered a religious Jew with the garb
True.
and from and all that. But there's most Middle Eastern Mizrahi Jews are religious and they're believers. They're not as strict as far as observance, but some become more observant over time. That's me. I had periods in my life where I was much more observant. I had friends that were ultra orthodox, and they helped me be more observant. And it doesn't mean that I'm not a believer and that I don't believe in my religion. I do, but
So when did you start believing that the Messiah is about to arrive?
well, that's when it's like I left the United States in 2005, and my first few years here, uh, we went through the Second Lebanon War, and my neighborhood in Haifa was being constantly shelled by Katyusha and Grad missiles. They were falling in my backyard. They were rattling my apartment building. I was in the shelter. I had to run up and down for there wasn't an elevator. I had to run up and down for stories to the bomb shelter until it was like a month or more, 2 months of approximately constant shelling day and night. My neighbors became shell shocked. They were visibly disturbed by all of it, and I understood it as a test of faith. And there were moments when I was laughing. Like there's a scene in Band of Brothers where they're in Bastogne in the middle of the forests in the dead of winter, freezing their butts off, and then their position gets shelled by artillery. And there's one character there that goes into a fit of laughter, from all of the intensity of it. Instead of fear, there's this kind of like responsive, like laughter, unstoppable laughter. And I went through that. I was like going down the stairwell. I reached the ground floor, and I was about to go into the bomb shelter. And then the shells were falling very close to my apartment building, to the point where it was shaking the building, rattling us, and the loud booms. And I burst into a kind of like a fit of laughter, an unstoppable laughter. And all of my neighbors were looking at me, and they were like, "Oh, man, what's wrong?" They smiled, and they realized what was happening. But and so after a while, I stopped even going down to the bomb shelter. It was like a month, day and night, and more than about a month or two. And I said, "Okay, I submit. If I'm supposed to get destroyed by some Katyusha or Grad, I submit to the will of God. I will try not to be out in the open while these salvos are coming at me. I'm not going to be out in, roaming the streets and just waiting for some kind of salvo to come and destroy my apartment. And I lived on the top floor. If anything, it would have hit the roof. I would have been dead. But after a while, I just stopped going down to the bomb shelter, and I was just praying. And I put on my phylacteries, the tefillin, and I was praying. And I was reading the Psalms, and I was just like, okay, this is a test of faith. And I won't be failing this test of faith. I'm not running away. I'm not going to any southern city for shelter. I just stayed, and I lived my day-to-day routine. I went shopping. I visited my relatives, and they were in the same situation also with going in and out of the bomb shelters. I'd say that was a strong test of faith. It's part of what started the process. And then through different types of jobs and office work, and I worked in the kibbutz and factories, physical labor, and different types of work that I was doing, just engaging myself in the day-to-day in Israel, learning more about what was happening in as far as expectations. And then friends of mine introduced me to the rabbi, Rabbi Nir Ben Alzi, my rabbi, that I accept as my rabbi, who I personally believe is the Mashiach, and many others do as well. And I started reading his weekly messages. I went to watched his lectures, and then finally I went to meet him, and I met him more than a few times and asked him for blessings. And I felt he knew everything about me, everything. And so it's like an unspoken. It was telepathy, and it still is telepathy to a certain extent. And so I know this to be the truth. I'm fully convinced. I have full faith and full confidence in this process that we are upon it. And I'm getting the signals from my rabbi. I'm getting it from our scriptures and from our the Talmud and the sages and everything that was written about what to expect in this time that is called end of days, Ketz Hayamim, according to the prophets, the Hebrew prophets. So people are in a state of anticipation. They know what's happening now. It's happening all for a very clear-cut reason. And the social decay and social degradation that you're trying to fight and combat is very commendable. And, I'll take your side as far as making people aware of it, having to look themselves in the mirror and deal with it and not have this
and formally reject Christianity.
Yeah, because it's hard for them, because it's part of their identity, it's their heritage, it's their history. And once they realize, and Claire, that's a major part of also Jewish messianic, prophecy, that in this time there would be people that would approach the Jews, and they themselves, being Gentiles and being Christians or Catholics, would tell the Jews the full truth and sort of like ask for forgiveness, or not. If not ask for forgiveness, they would admit to the full truth of it. It's not a laughing matter. This is 2,000 years old. Just by that fact alone, the substance of that fact, the weight of it, is crushing, and it's that's, if you want a convincing argument, 2,000 years of baggage, 2,000 years of history that cannot be just ignored so quickly. There was a grudge match going on for 2,000 years, and there's a winning side here and there's a losing side here. There's no in betweens. Okay, this is what they can't come to terms with that. Their pride is too much for them. It's in their way. Their pride won't let them overcome that. To deal with that reality, that truth, is way too humiliating for them. But there are certain types like Joe Atwell and honest types that are researchers that realize that we cannot overcome the past without confronting the full truth of it. The grudge match is ending. All right, the Jews will need to sever themselves from the Christianity and from the Gentiles. Those that refuse to, those that cannot, let them be. They can live their lives in the exile with the Gentiles as Gentiles. Once we have Messianic revelation, and you have people like that Joseph Fatrucci guy, who's probably half Jewish and half Italian Catholic, he sounds like it, he won't be here in Israel.
He's from Iran, I think. He's Sephardi and from Iran.
Oh, you said he's Sephardi and from Iran? God help him then. If he's a Jew for Jizbag, for Jesus, God help him. All right. That's a stupid person that pretends to be intelligent, or he's deluding himself. He's deliberately deluding himself.
Well, he's acknowledged that he has mental health issues, and I suppose for some people there is something seductive about having met Jesus. This idea.
Yeah, it gives it.
It's just so creepy for me, but a lot of people
No, it
want to
gives
believe it.
With today's Christians, it's a foot in the door to have a Jew that is
That has converted to Christianity.
Yeah, but or that is friendly towards the Jesus belief or the Jesus God, or that has
instead of hissing and spitting as they rightfully ought to do.
Yeah. Even if he says Christianity is false, he still wants to suck up to the Christians by making a case for Jesus or for like you talked about Dostoevsky and all that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, okay, the way of making sense of Jesus was that, okay, it was a practical joke, a divine practical joke to test these people about their understanding of idolatry and how much they are prepared to lie to themselves. It's like, it's so obviously idolatry. And, and this lie has been going on for, as you say, nearly 2,000 years. And they're still not, they're still thinking, oh, it's not idolatry to worship a man. No.
So you're constantly trapped in this a joke and this a half measure, the supposed like a transition, or an amalgam, like a mixture, a synthesis. It's syncretism, and it's obvious to people that are somewhat more educated that was a deliberate syncretism of pagan idolatry, Greco-Roman pagan idolatry, or Greco-Egyptian or Greco-Persian, all of those different gods from the Middle East and from the Near East, or the Eastern Mediterranean, all that entire region mixing and melding together. It's very easy to understand how they syncretized all of it with the Jewish faith and the Jewish scripture. It's not hard.
Yeah, because the idea of borrowing from something ancient is that began in the Aeneid, and arguably the Torah it referred to a previous time of Noah, and and then God
there was a heritage there that everybody was familiar with. So in order to have a clear or clean sort of transition, that had to be included. Those traditions had to be included into the new structure that was being engineered and built. They had to include the past into their new invention, into their new thing.
Because it's a theory of everything. The Abrahamic God is the solution to everything and the theory of everything, and the purest.
But it has to be adapted. But it has to be adapted to Greco-Roman polytheism and idolatry. And it has to be adapted. It has to be adopted and adapted to trinities that existed in several other cultures. In India and in Greece and in Egypt, there were trinities. Even in Babylon, there were trinities. There were so many examples of trinities that it wasn't an original concept at all. It wasn't.
I mean, we can create. Well, I can create. We can all create our own trinity.
Yeah, but they went off of older models so it would be familiar to those people that they were now in control of and ruling over. They had to accommodate a lot of different religions and a lot of different gods in order to create the Frankenstein patchwork that is the Jesus.
Yes, and now they can't admit that they have been fooled, and Jews in Western countries won't tell them because they're still afraid. And this suggests that a lot of them, the ones who are afraid, they don't really believe in God, because if they are,
of course they don't. They believe in the arrangement they have with the Christians and with the Gentiles. Yes. They believe in their easy, cushy existence with the Christians.
Yes, that's why so many of them submit to this so-called Christian order and this liberal order.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care that 2,000 years. For 2,000 years, their people, their descendants. Or no, their ancestors, not their descendants. They are the descendants of 2,000 years worth of Jews being persecuted by Christianity. And the nerve of them today to lie in the name of maintaining this cushy relationship that has developed over several centuries in America and also in Europe after, despite the Holocaust, is sad. It's pathetic. It's kind of like a whore sucking off a John and not being able to take her lips off of the
Mm.
it's vulgar. They're vulgar. Instead of being loyal to their faith, loyal to their beliefs, and if it's a Mizrahi Sephardi Iranian type, oh, that is the major betrayal. That's like the European Jews. You can understand them. They were subject to
They've been
so much.
corrupted, that their morals have been corrupted by Christianity for
Yeah, but
longer.
yeah, much longer, and they were under the heel of the Christians. They were under that pressure for so long, so they obviously broke much harder. They succumbed. They were broken, but
But I
like
think Jacob is gay. I think,
oh, oh.
I don't know. I mean, actually, somebody pointed it out, and I guess the more he talks, the more I am convinced of that. And I think gay people will have a horror of Islam.
Right.
Because they think that
Right, Christianity allows them to, it's tolerant of it, and now modern Israeli secular culture here is also because it kisses Western ass. It kisses.
It's a Western colonial outpost. I
Yes,
mean, I
yes,
don't think Israel is an independent country, and I don't
it's
know
not.
what Aaron was going on about. Him having a problem with Independence Day, and that's why he was asking, oh, do you have a problem? You'll have a problem with
No,
Independence.
I believe we're a work in progress. We're transitioning. There's supposed to be a certain timeline and a certain a period of time where we're supposed to suffer this and go through this prior to, again, messianic revelation, the full redemption, and a conclusive end to all of this difficulty, these trials. Let's call it closure. This also the time period is also talked about from Israel's founding as a state till now. It's now 74 years. The timeline, according to also previous exiles, like the Babylonian exile, which lasted for 70 years, there are reasons to believe that and it's also in our mystical traditions that we would have to endure this kind of process of with dealing with the Arab terror, dealing with the pressures of the Western world, like being a colonial outpost, like you said, having to submit to their value systems or adopt their value systems or imitate their
And
values.
getting yourselves hated by the Arabs, because fundamentally, they're thinking, how dare Israel be, a liberal democracy in our midst? How can, I think
Right, right,
that
right. Well, yeah, but at the end of the day, I understand what triggers them, and it's not, and also religious Jews here are triggered by it. But we're not supposed to be violent, militants, and religious fanatics about certain things. But they had a gay pride parade in Jerusalem is a few
is
years
coming
ago,
up on the 10th of June, I believe.
and they did it in the heart of Jerusalem, and both
Oh, yes, yes.
both the Muslims and the religious Jews took serious offense to it, and they felt they were being provoked. And there was a deranged, sort of unstable, ultra-Orthodox religious Jew that felt he needed to take matters into his own hands.
He killed a
And
lesbian, didn't he?
yeah, he
Is
stabbed
that the
her.
story? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he stabbed her to death. And so this creates more, resentments on both sides. Yeah, and the provocations keep happening. And we have, they don't even have to be religious. They could be even secular Jews that are heterosexual that don't believe in flaunting all this supposed gay pride nonsense. It's like, live as a gay person, fine. Why are you making a spectacle of yourself? Why are you being lewd in public? Why are you expecting us to accept this as normal or normalizing it? You are deviants. You are behaving as deviants. You want to be gay? Be gay. No problem. Why are you behaving like deviants in the streets of our country, especially in a city that we hold dear as a holy city? Why are you, for us, what you're doing seems like a desecration, a deliberate provocation and a desecration of a holy city and of our traditions and our values and our limitations. And so this will finally be dealt with, because Jews, that was a rare case. That was like a one in a million. And he was unstable. He was unhinged. He was like deranged. And he was willing to sacrifice himself and go to prison for life or for a very long time just to make a point. But he didn't make. But he didn't make. He didn't make much of a difference. Jews killing other Jews is always a bad thing. It always it leaves a bitter taste in our mouths, even if it seemed justified, or it was like a self-sacrificial act of killing is called chilul Hashem. But if it's kiddush Hashem, it's like sanctifying His name.
Martyrdom.
And martyrdom, yeah, but that's how the Muslims behave. But that's not us. We try to hash these things out by way of discussions and arguments. They could be very loud. They could be very vulgar.
If the other side is not listening or can't understand your arguments or ignores
they
them,
can, no, they can, but they feel they're driven by. It's a spiritual thing. They're driven by evil. They're driven by demonic and evil forces. It's something internal.
I think it is a culture war, and it's a culture war that's happening. Not just in the West, I don't think, but all across the world. Because I think there will always be people who want to support and practice the tradition of marriage, which is the most important human tradition of all, because it's fundamentally eugenic, and if you don't practice it, then you suffer from these degenerative diseases, these degenerative social and moral diseases, and once you suffer from them, you will not be able to accept truth or logic or morality, and you just want to do things your way because that's how you like it.
No, but there's footage from Alex Jones of these people acting like complete and total basket cases, like really hopping off of the ceiling, off of their beds, off of their ceiling, like lunatics, losing their minds completely, like unhinged lunatics, crazy people.
What were they doing? I'm afraid I didn't catch that.
No, I'll show you this here. One second. I'll find this video, and it's not copyrighted, and I want you to play it.
Okay.
And I don't think you would get in trouble for playing this, and show it to people. All right.
All right.
It's a short video, and you'll see some of the behavior I'm talking about. Like you said, the diseases, degenerative diseases of the mind, of the brain. You see that link in the private chat?
Yeah. I'm loading the page. My computer is a little slow.
No
But I think it's really the sin of pride that they're just not going to admit they've been wrong. They've been tricked for nearly 2,000 years, or even 250 years of liberalism can't be wrong. And
Sure.
There's just no point pussyfooting around that problem and trying to drop hints, because even if you shout at them, then they'll still pretend not to get it. And I guess the only way of trying to push them is to keep telling them that
Not only,
that is a
but
problem.
they're
Why do you think you do?
no, the consequence. It's not just that making them sort of like aware or stating your case. It's it will result in very difficult circumstances that will change things, whether they like it or not. I mean, when things become a very a bottom line survival, these people won't stand a chance because they're coddled. They're spoiled. They live in a cushy a kind of world where people don't challenge them that much, or they feel they have, like what we're describing here, that they feel like they have to rub it in your face and make a display, like make a big display it, like make a big show of it. Instead of, live your lives. You don't. Why do you need to make a big stink about it? But it's not. That's not their point. Their point is to make a big stink about it.
The verboten censored video that you came to Band.video to watch.
Yeah, that's a moment.
But first, I wanted to let you know that in our 28-year history, Infowars has never had a sale this big, up to 75% off books, films.
Aborted babies being burned and then used for electricity?
I hope they are.
Jesus, I'm so tired of seeing this. You know what? I hope so. I hope so.
I sure hope so.
I don't know. I hope so.
Oh, God, I hope so. I can just imagine the fucking snowflakes with that one.
Oh, no. I just eat mine straight from the can.
I don't think we should be asking, are they being burned and used for electricity? I think we should be asking, why aren't they being burned and used for electricity?
Reuse, recycle, and burn them.
The right of a woman to kill her child is aborted.
Okay.
You see that there's more footage. There's more footage of these people bouncing like some sort of like bunnies or some squirrels or what like monkeys on their beds, like tearing their beds and like jumping on all fours, like yelling and screaming at the top of their lungs. They're insane. These people, just that their behavior alone is a display of how of all of the arguments you're making as to how far this has been allowed to degenerate, how far this has been allowed to basically fall apart.
With nobody daring to challenge them because they're all afraid.
Yeah. But these people with the behavior they're exhibiting, they're dangerous. Even if they're like sort of like limp-wristed, whatever, that seem like. But the Antifa people, they're all like this. They all like look soul sucked. They look demonic. They don't have any life in them, but they're still walking and talking and breathing to the point where they can riot and burn things down and cause mayhem. And they showed what they're capable of in the Black Lives Matter riots. Those were mostly white people, Antifa people, doing all of that. And
I think the government's rent a mob.
Yeah, basically that too. There were pallets of bricks that were trucked into urban areas and positioned in strategic places.
It was organized, state organized, probably.
Yeah, for sure. But whoever we're talking about as far as allowing this open society, George Soros, the people that are called neocons or communists or whatever, the ones that want to create Bolsheviks in the West, the ones that want to create strife, the ones that want to accelerate this internal conflict within within those cultures. There's proof of their hand doing it, of their hand involved in it. And they're the ones who also created these people. They're the ones who also wanted these types of people to be who they are, to become so deviant and lost. Talking about using aborted fetuses for electricity and burning them in power plants for electricity, and being all happy about it and being all like joking about it, even if they want to draw some sort of reaction and they want to goad people and manipulate people. It's still that's what they think. That's how they believe. That's what they're capable of. That is who they are. that they're lost, they're demonic, they're dark, they're sinister people. They've lost their what's called Tselem Enosh. They're not only humanity, the supposed likeness to God that is talked about in Genesis. God created us in His likeness. They've lost that. They don't have that likeness of God, that divine spark in them. They're dark. They're demonic. Those are the words to use for them. And they were created to be this way. They were socially engineered to be this way. You know, and Christian and the West, like you said, the egalitarian West, the overly tolerant and overly submissive West has let this get out of hand.
Yeah, and it's because most parents are not married parents, and therefore their kids are, well, not what they should be, because they've all been indoctrinated by
Right.
by their state schools who just, tell them it's okay to have sex if it feels
Yeah,
good.
yeah. The school system is very, very criminal and responsible for making these kids turn out to be so messed up. They're like really just messed up. I can't find the right words to describe them. It's just like they're deviants. They're lost. They're twisted people. And they're sad. I met some of these people, that think this way, and we start talking about. I started to talk to this one girl about the different genders and the sexual orientations, and I was like, oh God, they actually do believe in this stuff. It's so weird. It's just like so freakish. It's sick, and yeah. But even if the majority isn't like this, the majority is silent. The majority is intimidated, and they're pushing those fanatics, those fringe people. They're pushing the limits of, and they're openly, like the gays, singing these songs in the San Francisco orchestra. Where we're coming for your kids. You saw this, and we're going to indoctrinate your kids, and you won't be able to do anything about it. You saw this. You heard about this.
Maybe I'm not. Sometimes you're not really sure if it's a joke or if it's actually news, and
it's cringe. It's really cringe. But I think that they're dead serious about it. Even if it seems like they're joking, they're not. One second, I'll find it. It's real easy. Gay orchestra.
Yeah, it's beginning to ring a bell.
Children.
But you see, the problem is really that the West, no Western nation is a righteous Gentile.
I found it. It popped up. They're not ashamed of it in YouTube. It popped up real quick. Yeah, and this is something that really should get people thinking. How much longer and how much more of this are you going to take without saying something? You can play this.
There's even a song that if you something this, your children will be next. If you tolerate this, your children will be next.
Oh no, they're actually declaring it. They're coming for your kids. Play that gay orchestra from San Francisco. The link from YouTube.
Yeah, I mean the trouble with these men is that they don't have children because they're obviously unmarriageable, so they don't care. And this is also the problem when most people who complain are non-parents, so they will never be able to fight it with the energy, the virility that is required.
No, well, yeah. At this point, yeah, I'm gonna mute.
Okay,
As we celebrate Pride and the progress we've made over these past years, there's still work to be done. So to those of you out there who are still working against equal rights, we have a message for you.
You think we're sinful? You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep him from disco, warn about San Francisco, make him wear pleated pants, we don't care. We'll convert your children, we'll make them tolerant and fair.
At first, I didn't get why you'd be so scared of us turning your children into accepting, caring people, but I see now why you'd have a problem with that.
Just like you worried, they'll change their group of friends. You won't approve of where they go at night to protest. Oh, and you'll be disgusted so gross when they start finding things online that you've kept far from their sight, like information. Guess what? You'll still be alright. We'll convert your children, yes we will.
Reaching one and all, there's really no escaping it.
'Cause even grandma likes RuPaul.
And the world's getting kinder.
Gen Z's gayer than Grindr. Learn to love, learn to vogue, face your fate. We'll convert your children. Someone's gotta teach them not to hate. We're coming for them.
We're coming for your children.
We're coming for them. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children.
Your children will care about fairness and justice for others. Your children will work to convert all their sisters and brothers. Then soon we're almost certain your kids will start converting you. The gay agenda is coming home. The gay agenda is here. But you don't have to worry. Because there's nothing wrong with standing by our side. Get on board in a hurry. Because the world always needs a bit more pride. No, you don't have to worry. Because there's nothing wrong with standing by your side. Get on board in a hurry. Because the world always needs a bit more pride. Come on, try a little pride. We'll convert your children. Then we'll turn to you, giving up the fear inside is freeing like you never knew.
Go and see San Francisco.
Go and turn up that disco.
You'll forget you were ever upset.
We'll convert your children and make an ally of you. We'll make an ally of you. We'll make an ally of you.
Well, all I could say is they are the modern version of the Hitler Youth. You know.
Yes, indeed. But this is what the matriarchy runs on. You see, I see the culture war in very binary terms, and patriarchy is basically the people who want to continue producing the next generation within wedlock, and the other lot are saying we don't care about that sort of thing. We're going to have fun with our sex organs, doing whatever and this is basically it, and all this sort of racial class whatever thing, it's used to divide us, because basically we just want the sensible, decent people to win. And if we want our society, our group, our tribe, our empire to remain in existence, that's what we must support. And they can't even do that now. They can't even admit the truth of the whole point, the nature and purpose of marriage.
Yeah, it's impossible with these people. The only way they're gonna. Wait a minute, I have to take care of it. I'm gonna get going now. I kind of let my son stew too long without playing with him. So
Okay. Thanks for coming, and thanks for
no problem.
sharing your
No
videos.
problem. No problem.
Okay, take care. So, finally, I'm going to sum up what I thought I said, which is that in a matriarchy, you just won't have the connections and the hierarchy that you need for focused, organized political action that will challenge this. So how are you going to get one? You need to say that you need one. You need to say that the one that you have isn't working, and you need to stop with your stupid shit of blaming Jews. And acknowledge that your society is a matriarchy, in the same way that alcoholics are required to admit that they are alcoholics. So, I know it takes years for an alcoholic to, keep going to AA meetings and say, I don't really have a problem, but I've been forced to go to these meetings, and then actually have to stand up and say, my name is blah blah, and I am an alcoholic. It takes a really huge step to do that, and pride so far has prevented all these whinging Westerners who know there is a problem but still prefer to blame Jews. And ultimately, religion is the solution, and you have to just come to terms with the fact that Christianity is kaput because it was just made up crap, made up by the Roman propaganda department very skillfully, and forced upon you by your absolute monarchs, during which you were forcibly converted, and now you're saying, no, it's our religion, even if we were forcibly converted and forced into practicing idolatry and blasphemy and telling lies and bullying people who believed in, following the rules as contained in Scripture. So Westerners have to acknowledge that Christianity was a divine practical joke played on those who incline to idolatry, those who are morally corrupt and intellectually cowardly because they won't acknowledge the truth and think that by denying the truth and ignoring the truth they can stay in the mainstream. And it's crunch time now for you to decide whether you want to do the right thing in the hope of solving the situation, or just ending up in the slaughterhouse as you would expect cattle to end up in. Thank you for listening.